Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your space for Black news, Black views, and Black opinions. Today is Monday, February 14th. I'm Seth Lemon.
I'm Nielle.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, as Russia continues positioning hundreds of thousands of troops near Ukraine, President Biden warns any potential conflict would be world war. We check in with an expert live from Ukraine. Meanwhile, new polling reveals who voters do not want to see run for the Oval Office in 2024. The surprising results. Then a big Olympic win for a black speed skater from the U.S. How a friend's act of kindness guaranteed her spot in Beijing.
Plus, whose house? Rams' house. The LA Rams win the Super Bowl, becoming just the second team in NFL history to do so in their home stadium. And everybody say love. It's Valentine's Day, and as all lovers celebrate their romance, we turn to a certified dating and relationship coach to discuss the rules of engagement.
We have all that and so much more. This is our voice, and it's our truth. So let's talk about it.
President Biden is warning Russian leader Vladimir Putin that the U.S. and its allies will respond decisively and impose severe penalties if he invades Ukraine. Biden and Putin held what the White House described as a substantive phone call for about an hour. It's clear, though, that the United States still believes Russia could launch a military attack within days. There are an estimated 13,000 U.S. troops in Eastern European countries, but that's just a fraction in comparison to the 140,000 Russian troops currently positioned at the Ukrainian border. Here to talk about the quickly escalating situation live from Ukraine is Terrell Starr, resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Terrell, thank you for joining us. I want to ask you about Secretary of State Antony Blinken's announcement this morning. He revealed that the U.S. is closing the embassy there in Kiev, temporarily relocating diplomats a little further west. And he's citing a dramatic acceleration in the buildup of Russian forces. What are you seeing on the ground there?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm in Western Ukraine right now in Lviv, where that embassy staff has been relocated. And so here the situation very much is pretty tense because of the military buildup and the troop alignments along the northern border and around the east. And so right now, the city of Kiev and the rest of the country, they're pretty much bracing for a military offensive right now. Americans have been advised to leave. I'm here as a journalist, going to cover things on the ground and see what happens. There's a mix of anxiety here. It's pretty surreal just being here with the locals. People do understand that the situation is very serious, but their mentalities are, we've been fighting the Russians for 8 years. We won't let them come in and take our homeland. We do have a military. It's a military that is the most combat ready in all of Europe. So this country is not going to go down without a fight, and it's not going to be a very easy battle for Russia if they do, in fact, attack on Wednesday. So goes the reporting. Yeah.
So we know the U.S. has spent some money helping to build up Ukraine's military forces, but still, the Secretary of State telling citizens, any remaining citizens in the country, to leave immediately. I know you're a journalist, you're covering the tense situation, but are your friends, do you know other people who are trying to get out? Are they scrambling to gather their things and get out of the country safely?
Yeah, some people are, right? But, for those of us like myself who've been around and done that, not necessarily. There are a number of expats who are actually staying. One thing about me that's important to note is that in 2008, when Russia attacked the country of Georgia, I was a graduate student completing a language course there, and I was actually there when the Russian tanks hit the ground. I was there when cities were bombed, and so while this is a very serious situation, this is not my first time at a Russian rodeo. So, I definitely have friends who, every single day they check in on me and I respond back to them. So, yes, I'm not a cowboy. I'm not out here willing to die. But, from my perspective, I'm starting a couple of businesses here. I'm trying to get a tourism business here. Obviously, can't bring people here now for obvious reasons. Right. But I'm kind of all in. So it's just not easy to leave. Not only just as a journalist, but personally, I have friends here who pretty much function as my family. And so to leave immediately, it rings a lot harder for those of us who've made our homes here, at least for me part-time.
Yeah, you really built a life for yourself. You built a life for yourself there, and much respect to you building a business in such a far, far away part of the world than where you're from. Tell our soulmates why this situation, it seems like it's so far away. It's happening in Ukraine and Russia. Why does this matter to the folks here at home in the U.S.?
Well, one of the things that people need to be mindful of is that Ukraine is a major conduit country through which gas is transported to the rest of Europe. The Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline is going to send it the other way. But, if there is an attack here and it attacks this infrastructure, one of the first places that ways that Americans are going to feel it is in their pockets. Gas is a globally traded commodity. And so while Russia exports very little gas to the United States, it's traded as a commodity. So if there's any war here that takes place, then your price is going to go up exponentially, and they have been going up already because of this. So that's like a pocketbook issue. Another dynamic of it is that there's going to be a realignment politically of how America has to respond to NATO allies that are bordering Ukraine. You have Poland, Slovakia, Romania, for example, Hungary. And so it's not that Russian American troops are going to be on Ukrainian soil. They can't, based on Article 5, they have no obligations to be here. But as far as NATO countries that are bordering Ukraine, it's important to consider that their military posture is going to have to shift, and that's going to be men and women in the military who are going to have to defend and be prepared to protect that border between Ukraine and those countries. And so from that standpoint alone, those are things that people need to be paying attention to.
Do you think that Ukraine, the president kind of suggested today that they may have to abandon their plan to join NATO? Do you think that that's a possibility?
That's an interesting question, because right now the diplomats that have been working and communicating with Putin have not allowed themselves to be leveraged in that way, and that's actually quite promising and surprising. And so I don't see that happening. They've declared that Ukraine has the right to its own sovereignty, and so I don't see that happening. And that goes back to the main problem about why this escalation is taking place. Putin needs something to take back to his people. If he doesn't have this pledge of Ukraine never joining NATO, which to my knowledge of what's happening so far is not happening. And so that so this escalation of people of the embassy moving west in anticipation of a war is very possible. So I don't see that happening. That's not something that's consistent with the diplomacy that I've seen take place at all.
Okay. You're on the ground there. You said you moved further west. Are you seeing the Ukrainian National Police on the ground there, this enhanced mode that they've been talking about, saying they're increasing safety patrols to ensure public order and whatnot? We know that you're kind of on the run, I guess, as you described it. Tell me how you're doing. Are you safe? Are you in a safe location? And then are you noticing that police presence out and about?
Oh, actually, yes. So you definitely see semi-automatic weapons here in the hands of police in ways that you haven't seen before. Now, that presence has been going on for several months leading up to this. And so it's not necessarily new. That military presence in regards to police having heavier armaments, that's been taking place for a while. You see it more intensely now as you go back and forth across the country. As answering my question, first answering your question about my safety, thank you very much. I'm fine. Like I said, I've been coming here since 2008, so I know the ins and outs of this country like I do my own. And so, yeah, I'm running, and I'm not running necessarily because I'm running away from somebody. I'm running because I'm actually showing Malcolm Nance, a counterterrorism expert that around the country, and he's doing military assessments, safety assessments. And so I'm just showing him the way. And so I'm running back and forth because I'm not in one place, 1 day or 2 days at a time. But I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much for asking.
No, well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day in this tense situation to discuss it with us. Terrell Starr, we appreciate you, and please be safe.
Thank you.
Talk of a possible invasion is forcing some airlines to cancel or divert flights to Ukraine. Dutch Airlines, KLM, has suspended all of its flights into the country until further notice. The Netherlands is warning pilots to avoid flying in the region. Now, German carrier Lufthansa says it is considering cutting off all air traffic into the country. Ukraine's state air traffic service is also advising airlines to avoid flying over the Black Sea because of Russian naval exercises taking place in the region.
Rudy Giuliani is in talks with the January 6th committee. Donald Trump's lawyer helped lead the effort to overturn the 2020 election. The former mayor is reportedly in negotiations about what questions he will answer from the panel. Giuliani's lawyers have told Benny Thompson's committee that the former mayor will take a less confrontational stance than other Trump insiders who have been subpoenaed.
Meanwhile, Rudy's client is denying he ever flushed documents down the toilet when he was in the White House. Trump is talking about an excerpt from New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman's upcoming book, Confidence Man. Now, the former president says Haberman's revelation is, quote, another fake story. Haberman says White House plumbers occasionally found papers clogging a toilet in the presidential residence portion of the building.
President Joe Biden is taking a good look at least 4 potential picks to replace Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. The president said background checks are the next part of the process for those nominees. The interview process for the potential justices could begin as soon as next week. Sources close to the White House say the pick should be announced before the end of February. The president still plans to elect a black woman to the High Court.
A black retired judge is urging President Biden not to nominate Judge Katanji Brown Jackson for the Supreme Court. Judge U.W. Clemens says he's concerned with Brown's commitment to workplace justice. In his letter, Clemens points to the 2016 class action lawsuit brought by 5,500 black Lockheed Martin employees. A settlement of $22 million was supposed to go to the employees, but Jackson refused to approve the settlement. The White House pushed back on Clemens' charges. They say Jackson is accomplished and fair jurist.
Well, a large number of Democrats and Republicans want to see someone other than Joe Biden or Donald Trump run for president in 2024. A new CNN poll says only 45% of Democrats want the current president to run for re-election. Meanwhile, 50% of Republicans want Donald Trump to be nominated again. Although that news isn't good for the incumbent, Biden, he still enjoys about 70% approval from Democrats. His backing comes primarily from voters over 45. Voters of color support him running again more than white people. 53% of blacks, Asian Americans, and Latinos would support Biden running again, but meanwhile, only 36% of white people want to see him be nominated as the president. It's a little early to be talking about 2024, but as we're seeing people start to fundraise and really pull their funds together to prepare, I guess it's never too early to start the discussion of maybe not having either the picks next time around.
I mean, honestly, let's be real here. I'll speak for myself. I haven't been like super excited to vote for someone since Barack Obama. I was excited to vote for, of course, SOAR VP Kamala Harris, but I feel like a lot of people voted for Joe Biden because we really wanted to get Donald Trump out of office. I don't know if people were super passionate about voting for Joe Biden, if I'm honest.
We're living in unprecedented times, so it does make sense that we're looking at who potential picks could be to run for each party for president. And with all of the election voter fraud happening, voter intimidation, people need to feel good about going in early who they want to represent this country at the next presidential election.
Great point. Now, there has been very little bipartisanship this congressional term. So when it happens, it is a very big deal. Democrats and Republicans reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act last week. Actress Angelina Jolie actively pushed senators to pass this bill. The law, which was passed in the 1990s, lapsed after Republicans refused to support it in 2019. Now, GOP senators were against a provision in the act that would have prohibited people convicted of misdemeanor stalking from possessing firearms.
The new restricted voting laws in Texas are causing mayhem. Election officials in the state are rejecting thousands of ballots already cast for next Monday's primary elections. Voting rights groups say the number of mail-in ballots being thrown out are at a historic rate. The ballots are being rejected because voters did not meet a new requirement to provide an ID number inside return envelopes. 40% of the rejected ballots so far are coming from Harris County, which is where Houston is located. African Americans and Latinos make up 53% of the city's population. So here we go. We're seeing it already starting to happen. That's why, to all our soulmates there, you have to take your time, make sure you put the right information down. They are giving you a chance to correct it, but it has to be received by March the 1st. Will they get notified beforehand to even have that kind of action to get it done? That is the big question. But We're going to see this happening more and more across the country.
That's why you see organizations like When We All Vote, Rock the Vote, these nonpartisan voter registration campaigns are happening all across the country, especially on college campus, because we know that there is a push to have people that want to vote, especially people of color, to disenfranchise them. So that's why the more people you get registered, the more people you get engaged, you can still counteract what the Republicans are trying to do.
I just want to make a quick point here, because all that is absolutely right, because it's power in numbers. We can get so many people to get registered to vote, but if people don't, like Romeo, like your point, is take their time and be knowledgeable about every little piece of the voting process. I think that's what more time needs to go into the voting process of knowing exactly what you're doing, because everybody can be registered, but if you don't know what you're doing and you miss something, then that's how you lose out on being eligible to vote.
You got to teach civics in schools.
Absolutely.
So you know the process. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's being criticized for his immigration policies. Religious, business, and community leaders are criticizing the governor's approach, calling it harmful to children. DeSantis, he's pushing for shelters in Florida not to accept unaccompanied migrant children. And this push comes after the governor ordered state regulators to refuse licenses to federally funded shelters that house the solo kids. Two bills are already being considered that would forbid the state from doing business with companies that transport undocumented migrants into Florida.
Dashcam video from a 2019 police shooting in Alaska shows a cop killing a black man. That is such a chilling video. Now, this happened in Anchorage. The video shows Bashar Hassan reach into his waistband. You're looking at the aftermath there, and pull something from his waistband. Now, officers say the weapon was a BB gun. Cops say that Hassan matched the description of a man who was reported waving a gun. African Americans in the state say the shooting raises issues about police reaction times when it comes to black people with guns. Now, what really upset me about this story is that multiple people made calls about this man. There are multiple people that made calls, and then there was one person, at least one person, that mentioned mental health. He might have had a mental health issue. I believe once you mention mental health, the police should not be the first to respond. There needs to be a middleman, like we've all talked about, Niel and Romeo on the show before. There needs to be a middleman that comes out, because if there was a mental health issue, why are the cops the first to come and kill this man?
You know, I was upset because in Alaska, they don't require a permit to carry a gun. Anybody who is over 21 years old can carry a firearm concealed or openly. That is the law there. Romeo, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say it's just so disturbing, and I'm going to tell you why. I've seen videos resurface where there's a white person attacking a police officer, just coming at him, and the police officer is backing up in fear, not pulling his gun one time. Yet you're getting calls and information about this. You just explained how legally you can have a gun, and this is their first option? We see this too many times, from the young man in Cleveland to now to this in Alaska. This is very disturbing to see this video.
I mean, well, this all goes back to the conversation of defunding the police and the reallocation of funds, because if they looked at the police budget and rerouted some of those funds into mental health officers and advocates, then to your point, Demi, then those types of people would be able to handle these type of situations than police officers. So it's just all about police reform and how we reimagine our police system in this country.
Absolutely agree.
All right, a South Florida man who was shot and paralyzed after a cop thought he fired his taser wants the officer prosecuted. Lawyers for Mike Ortiz say their client was having a panic attack last July when he called 911 for help. Instead of helping Ortiz, his lawyers say officers handcuffed him after he was already on the floor. Hollywood, Florida police officials say Ortiz was resisting arrest when the cop mistakenly used his gun, thinking it was a taser. The case is reminiscent of former Minnesota cop Kim Porter's shooting of Dante Wright. Porter says she thought she was using her taser when she killed Dante.
Virginia's brand new Deputy Attorney General resigned last week after tweets were discovered of her praising the January 6 rioters. According to the Washington Post, Monique Miles posted on her Facebook page, quote, "Biden will never step his compromised self into the White House." Now, she's defending her post. She says that they have been taken out of context. Miles, she now says that she believes Biden is the president of the United States, but no longer has her job.
GOP officials are reportedly worried about losing the Senate race if they nominate Herschel Walker. News broke this weekend of police confiscating a gun from the Football Hall of Famer 20 years ago. It happened during a domestic dispute with his ex-wife, Cindy Grossman. Now, Walker is trying to unseat Raphael Warnock, the first black person to ever be elected to the U.S. Senate from Georgia. The Senate has a 50-50 tie, and Vice President Kamala Harris can break ties in the Senate.
West Virginia's only black female legislator is the target of an anti-abortion message that shows an image of a Klansman. Delegate Danielle Walker got the email the day she introduced a bill that would ensure abortion rights in the state. The image of the Klansman was captioned, "What do you think the coward hiding under his dunce cap and face mask thinks every time a black child has been aborted? Be pro-life as if your race depended on it." The email was sent by a representative of a West Virginia pro-life group. Now, Richard DeSmoke, he apologized for sending the email. He said it was poorly thought out.
A Louisiana Senate candidate who smoked weed in his first campaign commercial is upping the ante, burning a Confederate flag in his latest ad. In it, Chambers says voting rights restrictions against African Americans is a remnant of the Confederacy, and he also notes the high rates of poverty and disenfranchisement among black Americans as he watches the flag burn. Chambers, who is a Democrat, is running to take Republican John Kennedy's seat. He faces an uphill battle, but his latest ads could provide a major boost in national visibility. His marijuana video racked up millions of views and considerable media attention, and he was a guest here on The Black Report as well.